the application of all the things that we have seen this semester, this subject. We will see how all these things can be applied to some case of the reality, of the layers of the knowledge, the first layers of our knowledge, no? And especially in the field of human rights. So the learning objectives of today's lecture are the following. Here is the foundation of human rights. And in the foundation of human rights, we will see why we should fight all the human rights battles, why we should develop every day more. For this, we have to see kind of theories, no? The theories of the defenders of the human rights, as well as the theories of the detractors, those who don't agree that human rights are a good project. So, after that, we will see a case law in which we will apply all our ideas of the principle, the value, the epikeia, all the tools that we have now in our intellect, in our minds. We will see how it works, and then you will realize all the things that you have learned in this subject, and you will agree that this was a good subject to resolve hard cases. This is principally the thing that we will see today. And if we have some time at the end of the lecture, I will answer so many, well, any question that you could have here, or if not, after the lecture. And also I will explain a little more how will be the final examination, and which kind of case law I will put in the final examination for this. So let's begin with the Human Rights Foundation. Why we should fight? This was a very interesting question with this second one, no? Why we should be involved in the Second World War? A question for this guy. I don't know if you have heard about this guy. Who is this guy? Nobody of you, no one of you knows? Was a president of the United States. Roosevelt. The President Franklin Roosevelt in 1941. So
Sir, you're muted. Sir, I don't think we can hear you. You're on mute.
You need to unmute yourself.
yeah, sorry. So yeah, so you didn't hear no word. Oh wow. Well, in any case, I explained the learning objectives of today's lecture. Then I shared this and I asked, who is that guy, no? And why he put these questions, why we should fight on human rights fields, and why we should be involved in the Second World War. These two questions. No? And this guy, I don't know if you recognize him, is a president of the United States. Is Franklin Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt at that time had a very complicated question, because he realized that in Europe, think about the Second World War began in September 1939. After 2 years, all Europe was devastated. Largely countries, places were at mercy of Adolf Hitler and Germany Nazi regime. France was defeated. Also, well, many countries in Europe, and Germany was with an alliance with Japan, well, trying to conquer the whole world. And on the other hand was Britain, the UK, well, receiving a little support from the United States, but the United States was not in the Second World War. No? And he realized that, well, there is a lot of problems there. No? So in 1941, he decided, well, let's get involved, but first we have to convince the people of the United States. And for that, he wrote a very clever speech, the Four Freedom speech. And after that, he asked, well, some artists to promote this discourse. No? Some guys in New York to made some statues, and especially Norman Rockwell. Who was Norman Rockwell? Well, a painter, a great painter of a newspaper, magazine. And now I will share you some video explaining more or less the things that I told you. No? So it's the same video that is in the chat. If you don't hear or don't see very well, you can link the video. And it is.
Times like these.
On January 6, 1941, 11 months prior to the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor and the United States' subsequent entry into World War II, President Franklin D. Roosevelt went before Congress to speak about the nation's State of the Union and how the country was being impacted by the aggressive and brutal actions of countries halfway around the world. Although the United States was not directly under attack, many of the country's allies and trade partners were. Roosevelt was facing stiff challenges as hundreds of thousands of United States citizens were advocating for an isolationist agenda and neutrality acts that limited the country's involvement in foreign wars. Recognizing this challenge, Roosevelt framed his speech envisioning a post-war world that was secure and at peace, free from aggression, and founded upon four essential freedoms.
The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. The third is freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understandings which will secure to every nation a healthy peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armament to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world.
Although Congress applauded the merits of his words, Roosevelt's four freedoms were conspicuously absent from newspaper reports of the speech. Already America's preeminent illustrator, Norman Rockwell, was struck by Roosevelt's ideals and decided to depict the four freedoms in everyday terms that many Americans would understand and identify with. 2 years after Roosevelt's speech and following 7 months of work on Rockwell's behalf, his Four Freedoms paintings were published in the Saturday Evening Post in February and March of 1943. The overwhelmingly positive response to these images represented a significant turning point as they helped Americans to envision what they were fighting for and why the war effort should be supported. This is the story behind Norman Rockwell's Four Freedoms.
In the spring of 1942, Norman Rockwell was working on a piece commissioned by the Ordnance Department of the U.S. Army, a painting of a machine gunner in need of ammunition. Posters of the gunner titled "Let's Give Him Enough and On Time" were distributed to ordnance plants throughout the country to encourage production. This illustration is the only image Rockwell ever painted of a person in battle. After completing this poster for the U.S. Army, he realized that he wanted to do more and planned to make a statement about why the country was fighting the war. Rockwell attempted to read the words of the Atlantic Charter for inspiration, but could not get past the first chapter. The language of the Charter, in his words, stuck in his throat. However, what Rockwell did take note of in the Atlantic Charter was the reference to two of Roosevelt's four freedoms: freedom from want and freedom from fear.
Well, this is the story of the well, why was painted the following paintings. I will show you now. But it's very interesting, because you will realize that human rights is not just a battle of approving new laws. It's just a battle also of convincing people, convincing communities, convincing countries that is good to fight, to battle in some specific things, well, because it is better for the human being. No, Norman Rockwell was a very famous, and now is more famous painter. For sure, you have seen some of his paintings. For example, this one, food and package of food. No. All people, it is a very big painting. I have seen it directly. It's more than 2-3 meters could be of height. Well, it's incredible, all the expressions of each guy. No? Or it's so funny, no? It's so funny. I think so. No? Also, this one, very used by the feminist movement, especially the woman that is in the left. For sure you have seen with some this image in some place, no? Or you can remember more or less, no? Well, this is also another painting, well, against racism, obviously, and against many things that it's quite clever. I think it's very nostalgic. So from time to time, Norman Rockwell, and as the video said, never paint just one. People in the war with guns, with armament, and kind of that. You know? he used to paint more nostalgic paintings like this one, no? Peeling potatoes, and mariner with his mother helping her peeling potatoes. No? It is very, very well done painting. I really enjoyed it so much, all of that painting. And that's why, well, he realized that he had to do something for promote the good things in that war. No, he realized that the four freedoms could be a good idea to promote, well, the things that we move ourselves to fight. No, think about at that time. The United States was not formally involved in the Allies, no, in the Second World War, just helping a little the UK with armament, just helping a little. And the Atlantic Charter was very interesting, but was so debated, and the Four Freedom speech was received a lot of critiques, saying, no, this is just for the promotion of Roosevelt and his ideas, and they as you know, at the end of that year was more or less was the attack to Pearl Harbor, and this was the final thing that moves to the government to get involved in the Second World War. Thanks God, I think so, because it's not now the half of the humanity could be Nazi, no. In any case, each one of these paintings has a lot of story and a lot of consequences in the human rights movement. No, he explained very well why we should go to the battle. And the first one and the second one were freedoms that were in the United States Constitution. First one, freedom of speech. As you have heard, well, this speech of 1941 begins with the first, well, the first freedom that it said. In the future days, which we seek to make secure, we look forward to a world founded upon four essential human freedoms. The first is freedom of speech and expression. Everywhere in the world. It's not just for Americans, you know. It's well, they were the allies, no? It's for every person. No? I don't know if you know the American culture, but it's one of the deepest rights of the American culture, freedom of speech. That's why what he put in the very beginning of this, no? And the second freedom was freedom of worship. The second is freedom of every person to worship God his own way, everywhere in the world. So this is very important, because you can see some details here in the painting. No? Here's the title. No? You can see here, no? Inside of the painting. No? Each according to the dictates of his own conscience. He linked Norman Rockwell, freedom of religion, freedom to worship God, to the freedom of conscience. But in the reality are two different kind of rights. In any case, related, obviously, related. And you can see in the painting, well, a lot of people, no? A lot of people praying. The one with the rosary, no, Catholic. But this one, a Jew, and another just seeing the the floor, probably the old lady. Well, this conscience is not just one religion; it's any kind of religion. Everyone for well, principally to worship God, probably, no? And it is very, very interesting because especially the wife of Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt, was involved after the Second World War in the draft of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And she expressed more or less all the ideas that Roosevelt had in the four freedoms of speech. And many of them were written in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In the Article 19, you can read more or less what was the consequence of the four freedoms of speech. No? Everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. You see that is more open than the for freedom, no? Is including also the painting idea, no? Conscience, no? And thought, three different freedoms, no? These rights include freedoms to change his religion or belief, and freedom either alone or in community with others and in public or private, to manifest his religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Well, this is also at the heart of the American people, especially at that time, you know, at the time of the Second World War. Was also a freedom recognized by the Constitution of the United States. This is very interesting. The first two rights, well, and Roosevelt planned to mention the most loved rights for the American people, no? And the first one was freedom of speech, and second one, freedom of religion or to worship God. So this is very, very, very interesting, no? We will see in human rights all the consequences of these texts. There were countries that didn't approve that text of freedom of religion because sometimes they didn't agree, but we will see this in another subject. Now let's talk about the third freedom, a very famous freedom. Freedom from what? The third freedom and the fourth one were not in the United States Constitution, neither in any kind of Bill of Rights. But it's very, very interesting. And more or less, this is how the art and the culture works. Throw in an idea, no? Art can give an idea of more or less what could be a right, and we can develop that idea and get many rights. This is a great example. You will see, you will see, you will see. Freedom from want. Well, please mute yourself. Freedom from want has another name, that is, take a seat at the table. Take a seat at the table. In many paintings of Norman Rockwell painted himself inside, always seeing at the public. No? Here you can find a Norman Rockwell in this part, in the corner. No? And you can see, well, a lot of white dishes, crystalline water, glasses absolutely transparent, and a very big turkey. You can see he was concerned about that. Why? Because even his optimistic spirit, Rockwell was in troubles about that large turkey, when in Europe and in the world there were so many people with no no food, with no home, with nothing, no, poor people, no. And at that time in Europe, as you know, no, and in that time in the United States, people used to be very wealthy, but he never changed the turkey, the size of the turkey, you know. Well, in any case, it is also here a nostalgic painting, no? And he said, well, we have to protect this, or family life, or happiness in our homes, no? This is a great idea to fight, no? And the For Freedom speech say, the third is freedom from want, which translated into world's terms means economic understandings which will secure to every nation a healthy, peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. And as I told you, no, Eleanor Roosevelt discussed this at that time. All these four freedoms to be included, in order to be included in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Specifically, that freedom was included in the Article 25. I will read just a part of the first paragraph that says, the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability. Well, as you can see, with just one idea, freedom from want, no, and one painting, no, one nostalgic painting. Well, this freedom evoked, inspired so many rights, no, that was written in the Human Declaration of Human Rights, no. Look how many rights we can find in freedom from want, no? Food, clothing, housing, medical care, well, some security with unemployment, sickness, disability, and many others. You have to read someday this article, and you will realize that the history is incredible, no? Well, it is very interesting. Let's go to the last freedom, freedom from fear. Freedom from fear. What said Roosevelt? Roosevelt said that for freedom is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armament to such a point and such a throat fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. So, obviously, every president has his enemies, and was well, there was a lot of discussion, especially about this freedom, no, that wasn't in the Constitution, nor in any kind of Bill of Rights on the Independence Declaration of the United States. That part ends like that. That is not no vision of a distant millennium. It is a definite basis for a kind of world attainable in our own time and generation. That kind of world is the very antithesis of the so-called new order of tyranny which the dictators seek to create with the crash of bombs. Well, you have to remember the history, you know? That time, the precisely time, well, Hitler conquered a lot of places, a lot of countries, and there was no big country that can do anything in Europe. And also in China and in the Soviet Union, well, there was a lot of oppression to the poor people, a lot, it's incredible. No? And in Japan also. So many dictators around the world, no? Many dictators are around the world. No? Hitler was not the serial killer number one. The worst was Lenin, no? 40 million, no? Or Mao Zedong, 62 million people died in the regime. Well, Norman Rockwell painted well, classical scene of family, no? Well, taking care about the kids with the bed, putting the well, blankets and well. And you can see here, I don't know if you can see here, that the father has a newspaper with a title. You can read there. Booming, we don't know what, horror, no? Well, there's the contrast, no? The puppet of the lady, of the kid, and also the face of the parents, no? The mother taking care of her kids, and the father, well, with a lot of concerns, no? With a lot of concerns. What I should do? What I should do? Has to be clear, the answer, no? Especially at that time, no? What I should do? What I should do? Well, let's fight to protect freedom from fear. Fear about, well, about the dictators and about so many people, no? That is attacking, well, all the precious things that we have. Well, these 4 paintings were absolutely a success. Reproduced, repeated in so many ways, in so many places, and every time with an accumulate meaning, with more meaning, with a deepest meaning. Sure, you have seen some of these paintings. I don't know if you have heard about this history. But, for example, I will show you just 2 paintings. Freedom of speech. Well, people used to express the same idea, but with a new circumstance. For example, why just men? Well, let's put women, because women also have the freedom of speech. No? This is another version of the same painting, as you see. Or white woman. Well, let's put another. No, all the races. No, and all the freakies also. No, the freakies also have right to express freedom of speech. It's incredible, no? Or, well, the contrary, you know, we are talking about freedom of speech, but no one want to hear. All people is attacking to the people who speak. Nowadays it's clear, no? So what is at the end of the day freedom of speech? Well, it's a very powerful way to express our ideas, to take care of the classical paintings, no? This is very famous nowadays, no? Black Lives Matter, no? Matter, no? So you can see the cap. American again. well, surrounded with white people, and also in the classical version of a photo, no, here with a lot of races, women, men, old, not so old, and so on. It is, well, it's a way to express ideas, to convince people, no? And this is, well, all of them are quite used nowadays for express ideas about human rights. This also is one of the most repeated remaked, no? Painting. This is what why they should be all. People could be also younger, no? Why just people? No, let's put a dog, because the dogs also could have some kind of rights. We have talked about that. And this is another, no? Well, and what about the babies, no? Born and unborn, no? Let's give them a seat on a table, not on a table. Let's give them all kind of rights, no? Born and unborn, no? This also will with people and with other kind of food. Yeah, it's kind of strange. All kind of races, also Chinese, also Korean, so on. And this is also clever. Now, why to paint so big Turkey? Because there is so many people that homes that are not so wealthy. No? Well, let's put just a bread, a classical bread, in the middle of the table, and fruit, and done, and rice. And you can see this is the food of the poor people, at least in the United States. Not a turkey in a specific Thanksgiving Day, but or Christmas, I don't know. Well, let's put all kind of races. Let's put also a baby there, and well, children, and so on. No? Well, also, well, you can see also the classical movement. No? And also, well, another way of representing, well, why all should be well, the typical traditionalist, no? Let's put new people with new faces, new fashion, and let's put a new kind of turkey and a new kind of food. Why just fruit? No, let's improve ourselves, no? And this is the same idea, no? Now the typical dinner is with a selfie, no? And you can see here, well, obviously he is not a Norman Rockwell. Is the one who is taking the selfie. Well, you can add so many things, no? Like this one. No? This is crazy, you know. Preserve the American dream, no? With a lot of mask and a special turkey without any possibility of coronavirus. yeah. Well, you can use in so many ways. There is also with cartoon. I don't know if you have seen this same picture with the Simpsons, with Batman and Robin, with Superman and Supergirl, Superwoman, Avengers, and it's nowadays so used this image for so many things. So this is, I think that behind these paintings there is a very deep ideas and a very good way to promote ideas, no? To explain why we should fight, no? Why we should fight. Probably most of the people will realize that there is some truth. I will follow Roosevelt. I will follow this freedom. I will follow this battle. No? But many times, and especially in a lecture of jurisprudence, we have to be deeper, and to understand better which kind of reasons, no, could be could be a good foundation for human rights, because it's not just a feeling, it's not just in a nostalgic painting, no. We have to be deeper, especially in this lecture. Why human rights should be protected? Usually, scholars used to say, well, there is a tradition that is called natural law. Natural law developed by, especially by Aristotle, but also by all the Stoics and many other medievals, that says more or less, and you will read very strange things that is not so clear. No? For example, no? They believe in some gods that put one law, and everyone should obey the law, no? Yeah, because God asked us. It's based also in religion, no? It's based, but the classical vision of natural law and natural rights also, no? Both, was not about that. Well, obviously, God or the gods also have some relation, but not a direct relation with human rights. A relation, why? Because they created the human nature. They created the intelligence, the will, the body. But the classical vision of natural law and all kind of law is the vision that we have seen, no? Law is dikaion, res justa, a reasonable thing we can discover. It's a matter of a practical reason. And principally for all that, guys, law is an art. We can improve ourselves. Every kind of art could be improved little by little, as the human rights movement is improving little by little, no? With increasing our culture, increasing our knowledge. No? In this way, little by little, with paintings, with explanations, with cases, we will improve our rights, yeah? Or natural rights. No? It's a matter of practical reason. No? Yes, God is more or less related with the natural law, but as a creator of the human nature, as a creator of the intellect of the will. And with the will and with the intellect, the human will realize little by little with that art, the legal art, no, the political art, what things are good for society, for the community, and for the individual, obviously. No? This is more or less the vision that Aristotle explained in this book. Oh, sorry. In the book, here you have two guys, no? In the center of this great painting of Raphael. Plato, that is pointing to heaven, because he believed that there is a great world called Hyperunarium, the world of the ideas. Yeah. But Aristotle is a realistic philosopher, a realistic. And that's why his hand is not pointing heaven. It's more or less in the earth. No, that's why the hand is in that way. No, and in the other hand, he has one book. Which one book you can read there? Ethics. No, it's the ethics to Nicomachean. So in that book, he explained that. No, law is a matter of practical reason. No? We develop laws with an art. The politics is an art. No? So one follower that developed a lot Aristotle was Thomas Aquinas. No? We have seen about Thomas Aquinas so many things. Well, right is the object of the justice. No? Law is principally the res justa, once again, no? Principally. And he defined law. What is law? Law is an ordinance of reason. First important thing, no? Because it's not because we have to obey the law because it's the law of God. No, it's a matter of reason here. Yeah, every kind of law is a matter of reason, no? Practical reason, following Aristotle. No? Fiat, no? I mean, ordinance of reason for the common good made by him who has care of the community and promulgate. No? With one aim, common good. The aim of the law is the common good. No? Yes, he said that there is an eternal law that governs the universe and the people. Yeah, and just a part of the eternal law governs people. Freedom, individuals, persons. No? This is natural law. This is natural law. So in English, it's not. There is a problem because in so many other languages you have two kind of words. No, we can say that natural law has two parts. No, morality, the legal or natural law, or the natural law that is related with the rights. Yeah. So in this last part is just the right. It's just the right. No. In so many languages, no. Is you can say, for example, in Latin, no. Lex naturalis is the biggest one, and jus naturalis is the smallest one. Circle, no. Also in Spanish, no. Ley natural y derecho natural. But in English, you have to use probably most of the time the same word. This is the problem. No? Well, in any case, all that kind of rules, laws, are ordinance of reason. This is interesting. No? Also, the eternal law. But in which reason? In the reason of, in the intellect of God, obviously, no? And also in our intellect. But we discover little by little what is reasonable. No? The deepest reason of every law. No? We discover little by little. That is the usual studies of law, as you know. Well, so more or less this is Aquinas, no? And he granted also, this is important, no? All the natural rights on the natural law. No? Natural rights are rights grounded in the reason at the end of the day, no? The reason that is first reason on God, and then our reason that discover the deepest reasons, no? this is very important because it's not just God who impose us some law, no? Yeah, it's related God, but this is not the principal thing. The principal thing in the notion of natural law is reason, is something reasonable. No? This is the classical tradition. Another who developed Aquinas and is in the same line of Aristotle is John Finnis, a very famous author. Well, you have some reading for this lecture of this guy. John Finnis is still alive. And he says once again that law is a matter of practical reason. You know? Rights are a matter of practical reason. Requires respect for every basic value in every act. This is important, no? All the legal system is grounded in 7 basic goods. That is to say, life, knowledge, play, aesthetic experience, sociability or friendship, practical reasonableness, and religion. So it is easy to ground so many rights in these basic goods. For example, the right to life, to health, and to some kind of insurance. Probably you can base all of them in the first one. No? It's so easy, you know. Or the right, or the freedom of speech. Freedom of speech in which could be, no? Obviously in knowledge, no? To know things, no? But also in the sociability of friendship, no? Because speech is not just a matter of to talk with myself, no? It's to talk to another, no? And so it's related with 2, knowledge and sociability, and probably, well, with religion, probably with some other, no? Why we have the right to tourism, to visit, I don't know, some national park. I'm so excited because this weekend I will go to some safari here in Kenya. It's great Kenya. So I have the right to go there. Why? Because it is grounded in some basic good. What could be? Play could be, yes. Sociability, yes, could be also. Aesthetic experience, for sure. And well, as you can see, he said, well, all the bases of the whole legal system we can find in these 7 basic goods. No? There is a discussion, a great discussion in the authors that say, well, why just 7? No? We can add some other, I don't know. I don't know which one would be, health, or what. He said, no, all of them could be reduced to these 7 basic goods. Well, there is a big discussion, but it is important, no? It's important, the argument of all these guys, all of them part of the natural law movement, that say that the nature of the human being is the first basis of the human rights, no? In some way. Or each one explain a little, one put more emphasis in the practical reason, and others in the reality of the human being. John Finnis, as you can see, no? Is a study of the human nature. Well, another way to promote this was the famous one of human rights, especially in the international law, was the doctrine of Francisco de Vitoria, a Spaniard that was asked by the Spanish monarchs at the time of the conquest of South America, no? And America. to investigate the legitimacy of claims to land dominion by the Indians of Latin America. Right? The problem was because the Spaniards had at that time one title, a letter of the Pope. But a letter of the Pope is a letter of religious authority, that Indians were not religious. No? So he developed a theory and said, first, all of them are person and should be treated as a person, and they have his own rights, the rights of every human person. And he expanded the theory of natural rights in the famous Relectio de Indies. And in that book, you can find a lot of arguments. No, we cannot conquer their lands with the force, with the arms, armament, guns. No, but we can be there because asking some friendship, for example. No, everyone has the right to friendship, to trade also with them, and to accompany them. And obviously, there is some great crimes, anthropophagy. There is the Incas, for example, were serial killers, and worse, the Mayas. No, well, we can stop this kind of evil things, and we have a title because it is not good for them, and it is not good for the humanity. That's why Francisco de Vitoria is one of the fathers of the humanitarian law. No, it is very clever. No, a great developer of the human rights based on the nature. No, with that book. So finally, more or less, there is another guy that was not so clear about the human rights at the end of the day, but so many people used his theory of social contract to develop a foundation of human rights. As you know, this guy is Thomas Hobbes. And you will remember that he wrote about the Leviathan. Men are like wolves. When one sees another, will try to kill the other. And that's why all the wolves should give the powers to a monster. So big that monster, so powerful that monster, that could destroy any wolf. And with that power, he will put peace in the society. No? That's why it's a kind of contract between the wolves and the Leviathan. Well, this is the classical social contract. No, it is not wisdom but authority that makes the law. It is not the reason in this guy. No? Is the will that makes the law. So now we have a new foundation. It's not a matter of will of the people. No, it's a matter of the reason, practical reason. For these guys are a matter. Is a matter. Human rights are a matter of the will of the society. And we have a lot of people that talk about the social contract. One of the last contractualist author was John Rawls. As we have seen, he refused any kind of inequalities. He tried to secure the maximum welfare. Well, how to achieve that kind of happiness? No? Well, he developed a theory, the doctrine of the veil of ignorance. No? we have seen this, but at the end of the day, it's a remake of the social contract. No? And with this new social contract, we will put the rules for everyone in the society. We have seen that, and that is the foundation of the right to equality, of the right to freedom, and so many other rights. No? All the legal system is based in this kind of theoretical social contract. Another vision is from those guys. Don't you know who is, at least the one who is in the left? For sure you will remember that he is Max Weber. Weber was one of the fathers of the sociology. No? As you know, sociology just is focused in the society and in its behavior. No? So, for the sociology, human rights are also described as a sociological pattern of rule settings. No? A sociological pattern of rule setting. Well, they just see what happened in the society, and describe. No? Sociology is just to describe facts of the past. No? So I can see that 95% of people used to follow that rule. No? And there is a set of rules that, well, it's a pattern, obviously. No? And I don't know if any one of you recognize who is the guy that appears on your right. This is David Hume. He said more or less the same, that he had something. Human rights codified, this is the addition, no? Codified moral behavior. It's not just a behavior, but it's a behavior codified, which is a human social product developed by a process of biological and social evolution. Well, it's a codification. So it is very interesting, because at that time there were not the French Revolution. No? Of Hume. He is a visionary of the future. No? But he makes the biological behavior and so many other ideas. Well, we have seen some of them. I don't know if some of this theory convince you. Which one yes, which one no? I will ask at the end. No, each one of you have to develop some criteria, some idea of why yes or why not. No? This is if I ask you, do you believe in the human rights? Yes or no? No? And why? And why? Well, probably you can say me yes because that or any other theory, and there are a lot of theories. The theory of reciprocity, for example, no, and so many others. But I put here just the principal ones. But as well, at the theories of the detractors, no, the people who say that, well, it's not a good enterprise, the project of human rights. Why? Well, there were so many reasons according to the times. No, I don't know if you know who is this guy. It's so difficult. So Edmund Burke used to live in the French Revolution. You can see he died, well, at the end of the 18th century. So, and was more or less related with the royalty, the nobility, and he realized that there is a problem with the new people who ask new rights, no? So he didn't agree with the Declaration of the Rights of the Man and the Citizen. It was approved in the French Revolution. For sure you have heard about that. He didn't agree with that. Not because he was against natural rights. He believed in natural rights. But he said, well, constitutional legitimacy was derived not from the Rousseauian doctrine of general will, the social contract, no? That is also in Hobbes, but from a form of inherited wisdom. Inherited wisdom is more or less a traditionalist, no? He had a lot of reasons for saying that, no? For example, the drafter of the Declaration cast aside traditional notions that had stood the test of time. This is a very clever idea, no? He realized that in the legal system of that time, there were in the courts a lot of judgment, a lot of case law, tested along many years, no? With the test of time, no? And why we should say no, all these kind of things doesn't work, don't work, no? So we have to avoid all the past because the past is bad. No, the past is also have so many good things, no? And so many rights. Why we should avoid all of them, no? We can do the same that the British people used to do, you know? This an accumulation of rights, little by little, a Bill of Rights, from the Carta Magna to the last Bill of Rights, Habeas Corpus Act, you know, and many other acts, no? Well, he said that, no? As I told you, not because he denied natural rights, but because well, it's to forget the good things of the past, no? Because it contains, well, he denied the declaration, the French Declaration, because it contains notions that were too abstract to have application within the framework of society. Yeah, and I think that he is right. Obviously, he is wrong also, no? Because we can improve also, but he has some ideas, very clever ideas about the human rights. Yeah, we are improving little by little, no? It's an absurdity today to say, well, let's forget all the past of the human rights movement and let's put a new kind of right. No, the past is not so always good, but it's not so always bad. No? So Jeremy Bentham is another that was against the human rights, the natural rights. And you will remember so many things, no? The book of laws in general considered laws as a political expression, an expression of political facts, no? Yeah. So he divided more or less with the Kantian schemes the world and the knowledge, the ought to be and the be. And the laws is in one part and the ought to be in another, and so on. No? So at the end of the day, he said, a natural right is a son that never had a father. Why a father? Why a father? No? Because he believes that law is an expression of political facts. No? Authorities used to approve law. Who are the father of the parents of the laws? Well, obviously the authorities, no? Who is the authority that approves natural rights? God, no. God never sent us written law, no? So natural rights is a son that never had a father for Bentham, no? You will remember that common law and natural law for him is a private opinion in disguise, the mere opinion of men self-constituted into legislatures, a superstitious respect for antiquity, a very strong word, no, against common law, natural law, and finally natural rights. No? But it's very curious, Jeremy Bentham, because he realized that codification is a good movement, no? And he proposed to the UK a code that never appeared. No? And it's a contradictory position because he proposed a code, but he was against a code. Which code? The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. He was against that code because he thinks there is no natural rights, there is not common law, and so on. No? Why he was opposed to that conception? Because he said, no, natural rights lack meaning. If an example, no? If everyone has unbounded liberty, there is nothing precluding them from using that liberty to impinge on the liberty of another. So you can see that he has some truth, yeah, because how are Britain natural rights or human rights in many declarations? Well, as an unbounded liberty, no? We have the rights to food, to insurance, to be employed, no? So it's so abstract. Once again, it's the same critique of Burke, no? So abstract, no? A government that is able to protect every person's right absolutely and equally is an utopian aspiration. No? It's a manifesto that excites insurrection. And this is another key idea of Bentham. No? A reason for wishing that a certain right were established is not that right. A reason for wishing is not a right. I think that he is very clever here. No? Want is not supply. Hunger is not bread. Wishing is not right. A desire is not right. Today, there is a lot of people who say no, I have some desire and I have the right to conquer my desires. Everything that I want is my right. And it is not true. It's simply not true. Be realistic. Yeah, yeah. The right, for example, everyone has the right to work. Well, but if I'm not hired by anyone, lonely by myself, yes. You have in your mind that you want to work in one company, and you don't have that right until someone agree with you on a specific contract of work. So I think that he is very clever. He is right. Obviously, not in all things, because rights are also reasonable. Life is not a matter of a political life. A fact is not a matter if, well, someone says yes, yes, and no, no. Another detractor of human rights is Marx, Karl Marx. No? We have seen so many things about him, especially the debate on law of goods, the critique to Hegel philosophy of right, too abstract, not a realistic philosophy for Marx. No? And you question, especially this one, no? In which he talks about human emancipation and political emancipation. Well, he said, well, all this kind of declaration, he's thinking about, especially in the French Declaration, no? Not in the Universal Declaration that was approved later. And he said, well, just formal structures, obviously, who promotes the capitalist system. Also, is attacking also, always the capitalist system and the rich people who oppress the poor people, the workers, those who produce the welfare that have no welfare. So, as well, the same idea. And but it is very interesting, and we have seen all these kind of things with detail in the second lecture of this subject. And you will remember the critique to Lockean proviso. Every person is entitled to fruits of his labor, says Locke. But this is false, because the workers for Marx will never have any kind of fruit of his labor. No? Just the rich people and the workers just work for them. So it is not so clear. And could be some truth behind that word, but nowadays you don't have just two classes. No, you have many classes. No, in between. Many rich people with alone with not working for and with not so many workers, especially in IT companies. No, nowadays it's so easy, and many poor people not working for anyone. Well, there is a mix of things. No? So Marx was against the Declaration of the Rights of the Man and the Citizen because, well, it's promoting capitalism. It's also a superstructure. All the law is a superstructure that never will emancipate the poor, the worker, the ones who produce the fruits for the welfare for the society. More or less, that is his vision. No? And more or less, the Soviet Union took some ideas of Marx and developed a kind of theory of human rights. No? But very strange theory. No? For example, there is not, at the end of the day, rights of the individual, but is rights of the state, of the community, of the whole. No, this is also an idea of angels. No, also in Hegel you can have some totalitarist ideas. No, so we have to protect the state, not the individual. crime was determined not as an infraction of law, but as any action which could threaten the Soviet state. So, an example, no? A desire to make profit could be interpreted as a counter-revolutionary activity and punishable by death also. That happened. No, it's not just because it's against the welfare of the neighborhood. No, it's because it's against the Soviet state and the Soviet Union, and that's why it's so. But at the end of the day, it's not a right of the individual, no. That because it is the vision of the of Occident, no, an Occidental view of human rights, no. So for them, it's the rights of the community, no. You can see in so many places more or less this vision. Also here in Africa, in some countries, is the rights not of the children, not of the individual, is the rights of the family. I think that this idea has some right guide, no? But we have to precise and to concretize what kind is good here and what kind of things could be improved. Well, I'm a disciple of Marx, no? Slavoj Žižek, he said, universal human rights are effectively the right of white male property owners to exchange freely on the market, exploit workers and women, and exert political domination. This is the critique of one follower of Marx. All of them are always, well, against someone, and that's why if he realized that this declaration was approved by white people, it was not true, because there were many other, for example, the Chinese were involved also in the draft of the Universal Human Rights Declaration. No? That the argument is this, no? If they approve that, it's just for that, and just because they have they want the power, and it's just and they are not workers, they are only authorities and white male property owners. Well, and I think that it is not a very strong argument. I mean, this is absolutely false if you see the history. Why? Because you can see now in the human rights movement, well, so many people fighting for the rights of the woman. Yeah, so many people. No, it's not. And today there is a lot of declaration that promotes women, that promotes every race, every color, every rich and poor people, a lot, no? There is a lot of declaration about the rights of the worker today. So it is simply not true. It is false, this argument, for me, at least. And obviously, at one point could be approved by a specific people of many races, by the way, of many races. But always any kind of human production could be improved, and we can put together more people and to cover with the same human rights every time more situation, more circumstances. So this was Marx. Another that we have seen was Richard Rorty. Richard Rorty said, as we have seen, human rights are only the product of sad and sentimental stories of others. And the proof is when the new wave of human rights began. Well, after the Second World War, as you know. Why? Because people realized that there was a lot of sufferings in the society. We should do another thing. If in the past was a sad story, we will write a happy story now. The happy story of human rights. Yeah. It's a matter of sentiments, feelings, of emotions. I think that Richard Rorty is right. He's right and he's wrong at the same time. He's right because it happened. Yeah, it's true. But it's also true, a phrase of Sallustio, a philosopher of Rome, who said, when the attention of the human being is focused on one specific point, the intellect increase. Because if we, for example, if we see, let's put one example, one pen, just one pen. Try to be focusing in your pen, no? 1 hour, putting your eyes there, in this object. You will discover so many things. Well, that this has some problem, it works well, or not so well, and we can improve this because, and so on. We will discover, no? Feelings, emotions, let us to be focused in one specific problem of the human behavior, no? And with this attention, we will increase our ideas of how to improve this situation. So it's clever to see, well, the sufferings are the cause, but it's not just the unique cause of the human rights. There are so many causes, as we have seen. No? Let's see the last of the detractors. Well, there are so many, no? And with so many theories. No? Mahatma Gandhi. An unjust law is itself as a species of violence. Arrest for its break, its morsel. Well, you know very well the story of Gandhi. He said, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights privileges the rights of the individual over, and this is the clever idea, no? Over the duties that we have to our common brothers. Well, this is nowadays a common critique to the human rights movement. Yeah, that is just a matter of rights and not of duties. No, there is no obligation. No, it's just unbounded, as Bentham said. No, unbounded liberties, freedoms, rights. And well, what about the obligation? In some of the last human rights declarations, nowadays you can find some specific articles about the duties, no? But it's just a few. It's not a good idea to put so much. Duties is so boring. So let's put just the rights. No? And let's put, yeah, I have the right to that and to that and that. Please don't remember my duties. It's incredible. Well, I think that once again, Gandhi is right, but obviously is wrong. Why? Why? Because, well, it's a good thing to have a declaration, at least to follow and to protect better the rights of the people, the rights of the people. So with this, I want to ask you what do you think? No, the same question. No? There should be some human rights, or is it better to not have any kind of declaration first? No? And second, what is the foundation of the human rights, if you agree that there should be? And if you don't agree, why? No? Who is the author that most convince you between all of them? What do you think about? Yes, Tasneem.
Okay, so in my opinion, I think that we need, okay, first of all, I think that human rights are needed, and that even though there are all of these critiques of human rights, you would rather have them than not have them. And the author that I most agree with in making this deduction is Zizek. And this is actually as per the video that Professor Singh did. And in understanding this, Zizek talks about how human rights need to continue to be hypothetical. So a lot of the critiques of human rights are that they're too abstract and that they're not applicable in real life. But Zizek says that they need to be hypothetical because these universals drive change. You have this idea of what you want, and you need to have a law that's very abstract because it helps you drive towards that idea. So
you're against the critique that, of Bentham, who said it's too abstract and that's why it's not so good. And of so many others, you say, no, it's so good that could be so abstract. Abstract as the art, as the freedom of want. And with this word, you can develop so many rights. It's better to be able to develop more than to develop less. Well, it's a good point of view. Yeah. Collins.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think the human rights should be there, but the only thing is that, as we've seen so far, they're incomplete. But that's also a good thing in the sense that, based on what you said, once we are focusing on now how human rights is already there and the criticisms it's facing, then it calls for more development in that regard. And as for the people that I agree with, I think I agree with Mahatma Gandhi, because in this sense, if we're taking socioeconomic rights, for example, you see that people want to have housing, people want the government, for example, to be sending them foods and all that. But then if you ask them how the government should get there, the answer is always that they don't know. But then they always want the government to always do this because they believe they have individual rights, but no duty at all to contribute to all these developments, for example, in terms of taxes and all that. So I agree with him. And then I also agree with the Soviet view, because if you look at, let me also cite another example. And since we're dealing with Kenya, let me cite some example. We are looking at Kenya now, you see that some things that could happen here in Madaraka would not really cause any uproar, because you see, even when people are trying to protest against some certain injustices, let's say evictions or things like that, the government doesn't really respond as they would if it affects anybody who is belonging to the big families, to the government, or to, you know, like you want to evict someone in one of Uhuru Kenyatta's lands. That's going to be like, you will see a new law the following day, an act of parliament trying to solve that particular issue, you see, because then it is against the state, and the state is not inclusive of everyone, but certain people who have powers and resources. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a good point of view. But in any case, the Soviet Union never talked about the family. Even instead of that, he used to destroy the families in the sake of the state. He doesn't think about the state. Okay, Natalie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to agree with Tasneem. I also found that explanation more hopeful and made sense, because a lot of fights for emancipation have been based on the belief that we have certain rights and therefore we can fight for them because we deserve them. However, I also resonated with the Marxist critiques and the post-colonization. I don't remember the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but I understand.
Because they identified the fact that rights as they are right now, they kind of work to mask the massive injustice that occurs, because people tell you, you have that right, but do I really have that right? But they should remain nonetheless.
Yeah, I think that it could be improved. And here, especially in Kenya, you have a great history about human rights. So I think that it's not just a matter of who approved that. Well, because in the whole the world, and also in South America, in China, in the communist states, were not so developed. But in the rest of the world, you can find, well, a great development of the theory. Duta, yes.
Just like Natalie, I think I really resonated with the post-colonial critics. I think those authors really brought out, like, for example, the dark side of human rights, where you find that European countries come to, for example, let's say African countries, and they now, it becomes now more like a vigilantism, like they said, instead of now promoting human rights. So they brought up the idea that we should be promoting rights and not those who are privileged, but instead those whose rights are actually being violated. So I think I really appreciated that.
Yeah, well, okay, you have a little noise in your house, but in any case, don't worry, I understand you. I will say that I agree with all authors. Why? Because I think that each author is focused in one part of the legal system. For example, I think that there shouldn't be any human right that is not reasonable. No? The reasonableness of human rights was developed, that argument, by the natural law authors. So all kind of rights should be grounded in the reason, but not only in the reason, but also in the will, because it is not identical, it is absolutely equal. Natural rights and human rights. Human rights nowadays is an approved right, approved by the society, approved by the authorities, approved by anyone you can imagine. But it's approved, it's a matter of the will also. And that's why always can be improved. You can see in the history of the human rights, one, second, third wave of human rights. Now, so many people say that we are in the fourth or in the fifth or in the sixth wave of human rights. Well, because it's a creator of the humankind, human rights, no? Of the will and of the intellect. It should be first reasonable, and also it should be the will. In this thing, in this specific thing, I think that Bentham was quite clever. But also should be concretized in the reality, no? The fourth level of the pyramid. You will remember the inverted pyramid, no? That should be concretized. And the first level is the reality with a lot of abstraction and possibilities. Then the intellect very open, and the declaration with a lot of possibilities, very abstract. And I think that we need all the levels of the inverted pyramid, the four levels. And finally, we will have this, no? But we need all of them. And also not just the rights, also the duties, and I agree with that. Okay, so I will give the break at the end, because someone will ask us the Zoom account. So, and I will end at 2 o'clock this lecture. And now we will have some case. I will open all the breakout rooms, and you should discuss the case, and I will explain you. And after that, after 20 minutes more or less, we will be all in the main room, and you have to nominate in each group one of your friends to speak and to explain what kind of considerations the group had. Yeah, okay? So, and in this case, you will realize that all the things that we have seen in the last lectures helps you to resolve hard cases. No? So let's go to the case. Put attention. If you want, you can write some ideas, because it will be just one explanation. The case is in the United States, but could be in any place of the world. I don't know if you know where this picture is placed. No? This is California, one of the most incredible cities of the United States. That is San Francisco. San Francisco is a great valley. There you have one island, no? Very visited now, with a 1.5 million tourists every year. It's incredible, because this island is called Alcatraz, a prison, a penitentiary, federal penitentiary of the United States, where so many criminals were there. No? The most important ones, because it was many people think that at that time, at the beginning of the 19th century, was the most secure prison in the world, no? And no one escaped from that prison in the whole history. There were so many attempts that all of them not so good. The best one, there were two great attempts when all the people was found, but in the second one, there were 23 prisoners that escaped from Alcatraz, but seems to be that all of them died in the sea because it was too cold. There were not any notice of them after that. No? This is the entrance, Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary, and this is one of the signs that you can find there, no, about the area, and well, so many things. No one was allowed to ashore without a pass in Alcatraz. Inside of the prison, you can find so many things. You can see that each person is quite isolated. This is one of the prisons, for example, no? At that time specifically. And if you enter, you will realize that you don't have so much space to live every day, no? A very small space and very critical conditions to live, no? So the case is in so many jails in the world, could be, but it is very interesting. It's about Christmas. It's about Christmas and the right, if there could be a right to festivities, more or less. This is the question. This is the testimony of one inmate of one prison of the United States. Christmas in jail is worse than you can imagine. And he continues saying so many things. During the holiday, a day in prison was not different for me than every other day. Routines, violence, staying alert, verbal abuse by guards, tolerance of abusive guards by their co-workers, and the prison administration. For company, I had a variety of other victims of injustice, wrongfully convicted prisoners. Of course, there was no shortage of guilty men in prison on Christmas Day, both the repentant and the non. I hated living around real, cold-blooded prisoners over the holidays, but I had no choice. And he continued. It was extremely difficult to get on prison phone. Too many people wanted to use it. Too many calls went on for an unconsidered long time. Too many people passed it on to their friends only. There just weren't enough ways to phone home to your family because in prison they want you to be disconnected on Christmas. Holiday meals in prison were downright terrible. During the prison staff holiday party, while guards were working on state time, we will often be locked in our cells. Sometimes I will try myself to sleep. Well, this more or less is what happened in Christmas. In Christmas, a day that used to be a very happy day for all people. Well, this is not so good for the inmates of a prison. Obviously, it is not always the same, because in the regulation of the United States, each prison can put its own regulation, no? And in some prisons could be a little right to any kind of festivity, in others not. In most of them, no right. Probably most of the prisons have some rules like that, no? The guards say to the inmates, I will give you the right to celebrate 1 or 2 or 3 feasts of your religion, because it's a matter of religion. There is a lot of case law in the United States. It's a very rich jurisprudence, a lot of judgments in the United States, and that's why they little by little are developing by the case law some rights now for the inmates. No? And in some prisons, in some jails, there is a rule like that. You can choose if your religion, because it's a matter of freedom of religion, no? Allows you to celebrate, not allow, puts you the duty, it's compulsory to celebrate one specific feast. I will allow you to celebrate one specific feast. In some jails, just 1, in some others 2, in some others 3, in some others no celebration at all. And that's why in some places, of some jails of the United States, you can celebrate the compulsory feast of your religion. But the problem with Christmas is that it is not compulsory. For example, it could be compulsory for Catholics to celebrate Easter, but not Christmas. And in many other religions, it's not compulsory to celebrate anyone. It is, that's why, for example, the religions who has a very clever statement of you should celebrate some specific Ramadan or any kind of feast, they will allow you to celebrate something, no? But Christmas is not compulsory, so there is not the possibility to celebrate. So you have the regulation of each jail. You have also, well, the general rules of the country, no? That says, well, says nothing about the feast. There is not the right to feast. And simply, it's not in the Constitution. It's not in any kind of Bill of Rights. It's not in the Declaration of Independence. In the Declaration of the Independence, you can find some interesting argument, because you can find the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so many rights in the courts of the United States are supported in this phrase of the Declaration of Independence, no? Life, but especially liberty, and especially the pursuit of happiness. So I don't know if you can find some link. You have to discuss and to check. And there is also, well, in the Constitution, well, so many rights, no? The right to freedom of expression, freedom of association, culture. It is not so clear in the human rights, in the amendments of the Constitution. Well, you have so many rights, no? There. So I don't know, what do you think about this case? But well, we have to discuss first if there could be a right to feast, but you have to support, because as Bentham said, no, not every wish is a right, not every desire, not every emotion is a right necessarily, no? You have to give some foundation of this right. If you say there is a right, you can also say, no, there is no law, there is no right. Yeah, so easily. And how you can develop your argument? Well, I suggest, strongly recommend, to use all the tools that I gave in the last lectures. For example, some principles, some values, EPK, I don't know, whatever you want, you can check. Now you have a lot of tools to resolve this hard case, no? So the first question is if there is a right, and the second question, well, and the right to what, no? Specifically, right to what I can claim to the authorities if I'm an inmate of that jail, no? So now I will open the break rooms. In the second group, I don't hear. In the second group, who was the nominated to speak? Becky.
It was me. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Can you put your video, please?
Oh, sorry, I'm not in a position to put my video on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Our answer was yes. They should be allowed to celebrate, but people in our group had the view that it should only be for the compulsory celebrations, including religious ones.
So Christmas is not a right.
Well, because it's not compulsory. Okay, you know how the Christmas is always celebrated. There's the kind of serious one, and then there's the other one for things like Santa Claus and everything. So people thought the more serious form should be celebrated. Yeah, and the reason for that is we had the argument for dignity and equity, and there's a limit in the code that, yeah, it's about non-legal rules, So if cultural, religious, moral, or ethical norms have social manifestations and could modify the rights of the people, all of them are of the interest to the legal system. So that was also our basis for saying yes. So,
well, the code, remember, is just a synthesis of arguments, that give you a lot of tools.
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
But the part of the interpretation, you have a lot of tools to say, well, I will interpret or read this statute, this constitution, this declaration in this sense. The second group, who was the third group, who was the nominated? In the third group.
That would be me.
Elvis, okay, good.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. What was your, you agree or not that there should be a right? There is in no law a right to feast nowadays, in no declaration either.
True. So we took the perspective of, if it's not being allowed, then it has to be, for us to refuse a certain act, it must be along the lines of the fact that it would be contrary to the objective that the law sought to actually achieve. And so we saw that when people are put into prisons, it's based on retributive justice. So we're trying to find a punishment that would fit the crime. And so the feast in itself does not necessarily contradict the objective of retribution. And therefore we applied the limit 332, the notion of unjust acts, to show that the limit particularly says that an unjust law is a law that's contrary to a law that contravenes the aims, values, principles, and rules of the law. And so we figured, based on this, it's not unjust for them to have a meal while also upholding the human dignity. And like you said in the last class, it's important also.
Do you think, we can say the same with another that so clearly, they have a right to privacy. And what about that? This is so clearly that everyone have the right to privacy. I mean, and what about the people in prison? I didn't think that is a weak argument, that because people in prison not have all the rights. The sanction is not to have all the rights. This is the sanction. The notion of sanction is a cut of some rights. I don't know if you realize, because if you don't do that, there is no possible sanction. There will be no jails around the world.
True. But then, Prof, so something that you mentioned in the last class was there's, aside from asserting justice, some form of grace ought to be put, some form of mercy, so to say, ought to be given to the people. And we also recognize the fact that in prisons, the fact that they are in prison is we're putting them there based on the perception in our minds that these people are recidivists. So there's nothing good in them, that their only definition that would amount to them being who they are or their characteristics would only be the crime.
Well, this is specifically hard, this case, because it is in prison. And in every prison you have, not every prisoner has not all the rights. Okay, now group number 4. Who was the selected to explain the argument in group number 4? Lavender. Good. Hi. So
we also we also had the same argument as group 2 on dignity, and just as Elvis, I tend to incline with Elvis' argument on retribution, because we were saying one of the reasons for us having prisons is not only for restitution but also for retribution, and by the mere fact that just because they committed a crime, we expect that we don't want to detach them from the community, but we expect them to feel part of, and that the punishment they are getting is not necessarily the punishment they are getting is to deter the community from doing it, but to also bring them back to and accept them after they have served their time.
Well, no one of you used the Epiceia. No one of you read the Constitution of the United States, and also the Declaration of Independence that says something about the pursuit of happiness. Any group is part of the analysis. No, you have many tools now that you can, and with that statements you can. Well, so many people developed so many rights in the jurisprudence, in the case law of the United States. Well, group number 6, I think so. Who is the one that will speak?
Me.
Effie, good.
Yes. So, okay, when we discussed it, we had, so what came up was that when it comes to limiting certain people's rights, that their rights should be limited within the realms of reasonableness.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So, okay, this idea is premised on the European Court of Human Rights and how they interpret limitations that states can make to certain people's rights. And seeing that these people are in prison, and obviously that they're not, their usual constitutional rights are not available to them, even though limits were to be put, I think the limits should be reasonable. So even if you're not, so to this end, if you're going to not allow them to celebrate holidays to the full extent of, going out and having a good day, meeting their family and friends, I think at the very least, they should provide for them a decent meal or a change in diet.
Yeah.
Because that, yes, they can't celebrate because, again,
it happened in some prisons of the United States, these things. In special
yes.
It happened, but in others not. In others not at all. Okay.
Yeah. And then another argument, but this one is a stretch. It's a very long stretch. But it's from international humanitarian law and the treatment of prisoners by state actors or by armed groups, particularly from the ideas of Sun Tzu all the way to the Geneva Conventions. Prisoners ought to be treated with a sort of recognition to their humanity. So at the very least, accord them basic rights. So don't limit them from movement. So in this specific case, where the inmate says that during staff holidays, they would be locked up in their prison cells and not allowed to go out. I think that's a violation of their rights because it's a holiday. They are already locked up from seeing their families. They can't interact with other people other than themselves. At the very least, allow them to move around the prison because over and above, they are still human beings. So even if you're not going to let them enjoy the day and give them gifts, at least just let them do the basic normal things that human beings do. Walk around, have a decent meal, exist in society or in that prison. So
Yeah,
based upon
that's a field of argumentation that you could follow, no? The aims of the prison. Which are the aims of the prison? Usually there are four, no? The retributive, but also the rehabilitation of the inmate.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of things that you can consider there. For example, in prison, the risk of suicides increase so much. And especially in holidays, because there is a depression. There is a depression to that guys. So the aim of any prison is not the suicide of the inmate. Yeah.
Yes.
So you can see which is the main aim. Well, the rehabilitation. In the holidays, in the feast, what is good for the rehabilitation? To avoid any contact with their families or to foster these kind of things, obviously to foster, because in this way they could change their mind, their problems, and so on. This is the teleological interpretation, as you say, as you see, no, the teleological interpretation of the norm of the Constitution, and this is the same in the code. Well, good. Next group, 7. Do you have any new idea? Or 8, or 9, or 10?
So for group 7,
yeah,
it's true. They should be allowed to celebrate, but they should not ask.
Sorry, now I cannot hear you at all. The first part, now yes.
Let them also feel. They should feel a difference between having a holiday when they are free people and having a holiday when they're in jail. This will also help them understand the intensity of what they did, and it also helps to reform them. But we are saying, let them have a little bit of a treat on that specific day, but let them not ask for all the fanciness that comes with a holiday when you are a free man. Yeah. That's all.
Okay. Any other comment, argument, group number 8, 9, 10?
So group 8, we opted to look at the Constitution.
Good.
And our Constitution in Article 51(1) reads, "A person who is detained, held in custody, or imprisoned under the law retains all the rights and fundamental freedoms in the Bill of Rights, except to the extent that any particular right or a fundamental freedom is clearly incompatible with the fact that the person is detained, held in custody, or imprisoned."
Good.
So that's the law on rights of detained persons, and there's also a fundamental right that every person has a right to be free from hunger and to have adequate food of acceptable quality.
Yeah.
So then our argument is, and I think this is what Elvis's group's argument was, that the prison's purpose is to correct inmates, and as well as the retributive aspect of it. And of course, there are certain ways that this retributive and corrective purpose could be achieved, while also promoting and affirming certain fundamental rights and freedoms. So it's obvious that someone who is being punished for a crime cannot be allowed to go out on weekends from the prison, because because it doesn't support the retributive and corrective aspect. Yeah, but for them to have a good meal of acceptable quality is in line with that fundamental freedom, fundamental right to eat.
What about the
and,
feast? How the meals can be linked with the feast?
Yeah, so the feast may not be does not really. Let me just look back at Article 51. So a feast is celebrative incompatible with a feast. It's celebrative.
Yeah,
In my view, at least, it's
one of the
it's
notions
more
of feast,
celebrative and
yeah, is that you have a special meal, not the normal one,
yeah,
very healthy. No, a special meal with an extra.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't know if there
but I think they can still. But I think they can still be entitled to a better meal than that which they're
yeah,
used to.
I
It may
really
not
agree
have
with
to
you,
be a
because
very
this is the definition
extravagant meal.
of feast in the archaeological authors. Feast as a specific special
Yeah.
feast, and well, but I don't know if I can support the right to feast and the right to meal, to have to food. No, in the first argument was very clever. Yeah, well, it is necessary or not, and if not, well, yeah, probably could be this. And principally, any one of you, group 9 or 10, used the natural law formula?
I think, okay, I wouldn't say we used exactly the natural law formula, but I could read some of the arguments that we had. But okay, so we said, yeah, they have a right to actually, okay, in my own opinion, I think that they have a right to a feast, yeah?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's in my own opinion. I don't know about like the group, but I think they have a right to feast. But the group generally said that regard needs to be paid to human dignity, which is, of course, it's a natural tenant, it's a natural principle. Humans have some ontological dignity to them, which I guess is set out in natural law, and they deserve to be treated like human beings. And being part of, well, humanity entails the concept of joy, right?
Yeah.
It's just natural to human beings that they should be joyous and happy, right? And I think a feast, when you pull out all the stops and you make an effort to, you know, go a long way, that's what actually brings out the joy. And I think that the prisoners, well, they deserve it. Of course, we asked a question on justice. You know, is justice found in nature or morality? So that's it's a point where we were a little bit, we came to a stop at around there. But yes, there was also some mention on, you know, what to do with equity, because, you know, equity comes in place to mitigate the harshness of the law. And in this case, the harshness of the law is the punishment these prisoners are enduring. But equity would come in and bring in the concept of
equity.
human dignity.
It's good. Equity is absolutely, you can apply to this case. Absolutely, yeah. It's a good thing, yeah. And you can see if the requirements are fulfilled, and obviously yes, yeah. Good. These 2 points.
And our stop came to the question of justice as a concept that's either defined in nature or morality. Now we didn't go past that. Our group, we came back to the main session. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any other new argument? Group number 10? No. Okay.
No, our argument was the same as, I think it's group number 8, the one for the Constitution.
Yeah, the pursuit of happiness. Remember, the natural law formula gives us a sense of order. I told you that I was impressed when I have heard that the fears of the rights, in some sense, not in the most urgent, that is life, but in the sense of the absolute life, is for, at least for many people, freedom of religion. If you put an order for rights, you can say, well, privacy in jail could be cutted, this right. But the principal rights, no, life obviously cannot be quoted on jail. No, you are in prison, you have no rights. No, you have some rights, just a few of them you can quote for punish, but you should quote something, because if not, there is no punishment. And there is no order in the society, and there is no so many things, no? But life and freedom of religion, you cannot quote, nor in the jail, nor in any place. Conscience, the right to knowledge, so many things. You cannot do that. And that's why it's so important, the hierarchy of the rights, of the principles, of the aims, of the values. So it is a good idea to check the natural law formula and see, well, how the things are in the jail. And what are the notions? Being, the notion of feast. What is the notion of feast? Well, for many people, or the archaeologists, for example, is a special food, special food. Well, it's for others a celebration of the most important highlights of the life, and so. First, what are the things are? Second, aims. What are the aims of the prison? Or the aims of the punishment or the sanctions? Third, values. What is worthy, valuable here? Well, probably you have to apply a specific value, equity, also equity, and so many other things, no? That equity, and obviously, well, the rehabilitation of the inmate as a human being, the family is more important than so many things, and at least you have the right to call to your family. Yeah, you can do an interpretation of the values in this specific case. Then principles, no, pro homine and pro good things. The feast is a good thing, yes. So the interpretation should be in pro the feast, pro feast. There is a principle. I think so. So remember, no, the first principle of the law is just an affirmation of a value or of an end, and the feast is a value. I think so, yeah, because the feast is quite connected with happiness. And with the principle of happiness, not with any kind, because if our life have any sense, is we can be happiness, we should celebrate at the end of the day, at the end of the life. Also, you can think about if your life in a theological way, no, is valuable. There should be a heaven, you know, because we have to celebrate at the end of the day. So. Then norms. If there is any norm, how we can read it, no? With the teleological interpretation, with the axiological interpretation, in dubio pro, the things that have any kind of value, with an extensive interpretation for the worthy things, and with a restrictive interpretation, with all that we hate, like prison, like not to have rights. So you have a lot of tools now. And also, finally, if there is, for example, I said you, in some prisons, some mates have some rights, but the others not. And you can say, and why in this religion they have this right and in this other religion not? We have to apply the principle of equality. There is principle of equality to treat all of them in the equal way. Why I will give three fifths to one and no one to the other? Because it's not compulsory. Well, treat of equality. And also you can apply so many other principle of proportionality also, so many things. Or at least an epikeia. If some rules are so bad in one jail, you have to put epikeia. But you cannot apply that rules that are not the aims of the rules, no? And in other that are better, well, probably you can apply that. So, and the Constitution, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence is quite clever, because it's the pursuit of happiness, the ultimate aim of the legal system, how to achieve them. There are so many cases that create so many rights in the legal system of the United States just with that word. It's very, very, very interesting. Try to develop this argument. No? So, as you can see, you have now a lot of tools in your mind to resolve hard cases. So, for this is this subject. No?